My name is Camille. I'm 53 years old. And this is how a 28-year-old woman tried to destroy my life and ended up setting me free. It all began on a cold Tuesday evening in March. I was in my apartment in Lyon, carefully preparing a special dinner. That night, Philippe and I were supposed to celebrate our 25th wedding anniversary. 25 years of love, arguments, vacations, and silent breakfasts. I had even bought new lingerie and a bottle of Dom Perignon. The table was set. The candles were ready. I was smiling to myself in the kitchen, believing I still knew the man I had shared my life with for half of it. At 7:30 p.m., my phone started buzzing. A single message from an unknown number. Then another. And another. Within 5 minutes, I had received over 60 messages. My heart raced. I imagined an accident. Something had happened. Someone was hurt. I picked up my phone, hands trembling, and opened the first message. A photo. A young blonde woman completely naked in my bed. The sheets, my sheets, I had just bought at Galeries Lafayette. The second photo. My husband Philippe also naked, kissing her neck. The third, even more explicit. I stood there, paralyzed, as photo after photo loaded onto my screen. 60 pictures in total, taken in different rooms of my home. My bedroom, my kitchen, my living room. The places I had carefully decorated and filled with memories. But the worst part wasn't the images. It was the message that followed. Hello, Camille. I'm Margot. I'm 28 years old, and I'm the woman your husband really loves. These photos were taken at your place over the last few months. Every time you left for work, he invited me over. Philippe told me everything. How you don't sleep together anymore, how you've aged, how he feels stuck. He's going to leave you next week and file for divorce. I just wanted to give you a heads up. Oh, and thanks for keeping the house so clean. It made our time together extra nice. I read it 3 times. Not because I couldn't believe it, but because something inside me refused to feel what I was supposed to feel. I wasn't crying. I wasn't collapsing. I wasn't falling apart. I was boiling. Not in despair, but in pure ice-cold fury. That girl thought she was humiliating me. She thought she had destroyed me. But what she didn't realize was that she had just given me the most powerful weapon imaginable. Proof. Hard evidence. Dates, times, locations, photographed and documented in my house. She had built the entire case for me, thinking she was being clever. I took a deep breath, closed the message, and walked to the window. Lyon was glowing outside, golden lights reflecting on the wet pavement. A city I loved. A city where I had built a career, raised my son, and tried to believe in a love that clearly hadn't existed in a long time. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I smiled. A real smile. Not the kind you give out of politeness or to avoid questions, but the kind that comes from clarity. From knowing something is over. From feeling your power return. I sat down at the kitchen table, the same one Philippe and I had shared countless breakfasts on, and opened my laptop. I created a folder and gave it the most appropriate name I could think of. Liberation. Not divorce. Not betrayal. Liberation. Then I began organizing everything. Each photo, each message, sorted by date, by location. I noticed the details she had left intact. Metadata on each image showing the exact time it was taken. One said, Wednesday, February 15th, 14:30 bedroom. Another, Monday, March 6th, 13:15 kitchen. My kitchen. On the granite counter I chose myself last year. Where I had once placed birthday cakes and morning coffees. That's where they did it. Each image was a wound. But also, each one was a step toward freedom. Toward clarity. Toward reclaiming myself. At 9 p.m., the door opened. Philippe walked in holding flowers. He looked nervous. I wondered if he knew yet what I knew. Maybe he sensed it. Maybe she had told him she sent the message. He kissed my cheek like nothing had happened and asked what smelled so good in the kitchen. I stared at him for a moment, really looked at him. And I didn't feel love. I didn't feel loss. I didn't feel anything I expected. What I felt was peace. Because I knew I was done. He didn't know it yet. But his life, as he knew it, was about to change. Philippe sat across from me at the dinner table, cutting into the meal I had prepared with so much care. He didn't say much. He looked tired. Or maybe guilty. I studied him silently while sipping champagne. Yes, I still served it. Why? Because I had already shifted from wife to strategist. He didn't know yet what I knew. That I had seen everything. That the pretty little 28-year-old girl he had been sneaking into my home had not only betrayed me, but handed me a gift with her arrogant little fingers. He had no idea the smile I wore that night wasn't out of joy, but out of victory. After dinner, I told him I was tired and wanted to go to bed early. He nodded, kissed my forehead, then picked up his phone and walked out to the balcony for a business call. Of course, I imagined her on the other end asking, "Did she cry? Did she scream?" No, Margot. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I slept like a queen. The next morning, I woke up before him. I prepared coffee, buttered toast, and sat at the kitchen table, my laptop open. I was adding more context to the folder I'd started the night before. The liberation file. For every photo Margot had sent me, I now had timestamps and GPS tags, some of which clearly placed the photos inside our home. My home. The one I paid for, furnished, and protected for 25 years. At 8:15 a.m., Philippe walked in and kissed my cheek again. He looked at the laptop and asked what I was working on. I looked up. Just organizing my life. He smiled awkwardly and grabbed his coffee. I smiled back, pleasant, composed, quiet. The way a woman does when she's 3 steps ahead. I spent the following days in silence. Not because I was broken, but because I was planning. I met with a lawyer. A good one. A woman who had seen 1,000 versions of this same betrayal. She didn't ask many questions. She saw my evidence, nodded, and said, "You're going to win this, Camille." Completely. Margot had documented everything. Everything. Names, rooms, timestamps. She had even mentioned how Philippe couldn't wait to be rid of me. I had more than enough to not only get a divorce on grounds of infidelity, but to keep the apartment, my share of our finances, and a clean reputation. But I wasn't interested in destroying him. I just wanted to walk away with dignity and leave him to live with the choice he made. On Saturday, Philippe suggested we go out to dinner. I agreed. At the restaurant, I watched him carefully. He looked nervous, like a man sitting on a ticking bomb. Halfway through the meal, he reached for my hand and said, "Camille, I've been meaning to talk to you about something important." Ah, here it comes. I haven't been feeling connected to us lately. I think we've grown apart. You've been distant. And I met someone. It just happened. I didn't mean for it to. I stared at him unmoved. Her name is Margot, he added carefully. I smiled softly. Yes, I know. He froze. You do. I reached into my purse and pulled out a small envelope. Inside was a USB stick. He stared at it like it was a live grenade. You should take a look at what your little girlfriend sent me last week, I said. She's quite the photographer. He paled. I leaned forward. Don't worry. I'm not going to scream or throw wine in your face. That would give you too much drama, too much attention. I'm just letting you know, I'm done. And I will not be staying in a marriage where I am lied to, disrespected, and replaced like worn-out furniture. He stammered, tried to explain, even dared to say he never meant to hurt me. I placed my napkin on the table, stood up, and said, Intentions don't matter. Actions do. And I walked out of the restaurant, leaving him there, shocked, alone, and entirely aware of the storm he had just invited into his life. That night, I stood on the balcony of my apartment, and looked out over the city lights of Lyon. I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not heartbreak. Not rage. Freedom. Real, unshakable freedom. Because in losing him, I was finally getting myself back. The silence in the apartment was different now. Not the cold silence of suspicion. Not the tense silence of secrets. It was a peaceful silence, the kind that comes after a storm has passed, and all that's left is the clear sky. Philippe had moved out 2 weeks earlier. He didn't put up much of a fight. Not once I told him I had all the evidence and had already filed for divorce. He tried to call a few times, left long, apologetic voicemails. I didn't listen to them. I just watched the message notifications build up like tiny little trophies of how far I had come. Margot, on the other hand, went quiet. Completely. After sending me those 60 photos and that ridiculous message, she must have realized she handed me the sword I'd used to free myself. I never responded to her, never confronted her. She didn't deserve my words. She wasn't my problem. Philippe was never stolen from me. He walked away on his own. Let them be together. Let them play house in some new apartment full of lies and apologies. Let her find out who he really is, without the sparkle of secrecy to make it exciting. I had better things to do. I redecorated the apartment. I took down every photo of us together. I sold the bed, the very one they used behind my back. I bought a new one, bigger, softer mine. I painted the bedroom walls a warm olive green. Put up new curtains. Bought a chair I'd always wanted but Philippe used to say was too much. For the first time in years, I made my space reflect me, not a compromise. Not a shared taste. Just me. It was liberating. The kind of liberation I didn't even realize I needed until it wrapped itself around me like a warm blanket. One morning, I went out for coffee at a little cafe I used to walk by every day but never entered. I always thought, maybe one day when I have time. Well, I had time now. The owner, an older woman named Soline, greeted me like an old friend. I sat near the window and watched people pass by. Young lovers, mothers with children, women walking with purpose and confidence. And I realized, I wasn't broken. I wasn't a victim. I was simply at a new beginning. Friends began inviting me to events again. At first, I hesitated. I wasn't sure if I was ready to laugh again, to dance, to belong to the world without the identity of Philippe's wife. But I went. And I laughed. And I didn't just belong, I shined. People said I looked younger. Happier. There was light in my eyes that hadn't been there in years. I knew what it was. Peace. Clarity. A life unchained. A few months later, I received an email from Margot. Yes, she reached out to me. It was long, awkward, and full of excuses. She said Philippe had become distant, that he was not the man she thought he was, that maybe she made a mistake, and she now realized I must have been a strong woman to stay married to him that long. She ended with, I guess we both were used by him in different ways. I hope you can forgive me one day. I didn't reply. Not out of anger, but because I had nothing to say. Forgiveness isn't something I owed her. It's something I gave myself the day I let both of them go. Today I'm 54. I run my own design consultancy from home, and my business is thriving. I travel. I read. I walk along the Rhone at sunset, wearing the smile of a woman who lost everything that was fake and found everything that was real. Sometimes people ask me if I'd ever fall in love again. Maybe. But I don't need someone to complete me anymore. I am no longer a half waiting to be made whole. I still keep the USB Margot handed me, tucked away in a drawer, not as a reminder of pain, but as a strange symbol of rebirth. She thought she was taking my husband. She had no idea she was giving me back my life.